Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Shoulders of Giants. Today we have some amazing entrepreneurs today, and Micah and Diana LaCerte. And welcome to the show. We look forward to learning from you. And you guys have started a company that's kind of went pretty big across, well, international rather, for looks like online personal training, helping people get their health in line, helping people take care of their bodies. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a little over 14 years ago, we started a business called Hitch Fit. We were kind of pioneers in that space. We started it on Myspace, of all places, really utilizing social media marketing at its very infancy stage of social media marketing. And ultimately, we wanted to wake up and we wanted to help as many people as possible. At the time, that meant going to gyms, helping people that way. Well, the power of online and the internet was the ability to work with people all over the world. And so this idea came up of like, okay, if I can help people in Kansas City, now we have this internet option. Why couldn't I just make plans for people all over the globe? And that's essentially what we did. And we've built it to 81 countries and over 600,000 pounds since then.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
I
amazing.
I would just add to that. It's like, just speaking into entrepreneurs who are considering starting their business. We started with very little. We were literally living in an attic, and I didn't even have a car. And we just kind of had this idea of let's just build our own thing, and with a focus on our passion for helping people, and let's keep the focus on the people and the passion, and trusting that the financial side would come. So that was kind of where we started, and it just we let it grow just organically, and using those tools that were new at the time. And those have expanded a lot too, and just we've been able to keep up with those and keep things going too.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and those are some of those kind of fine details that people don't see out there, right? You started it on MySpace. I mean, that is a huge idea. That is, I mean, to be honest with you, I was in middle school probably, and like you said, people were, going to gyms. They weren't thinking about the online space and personal fitness. And it sounds like you kind of pioneered that in a sense. I mean, how did you come up with that idea?
So I'll tell you how it happened. I was doing this whole transformation model many years before we actually launched Hitch Fit. I was definitely inspired by Bill Phillips and EAS, because when I went through my own journey in
Right.
1997 is when I started, getting into the fitness world, and ultimately I was like, man, these before and afters are crazy. And so when right
Yeah.
around probably 2005ish 2004, I was kind of doing it at different gyms that I was working at. And all the gyms were based off of retention
Okay.
models of trying to keep a client as long as possible. And I was like, man, I want to actually help people, that's why they're here. And then utilize their success to grow my own business. And so this lady on MySpace
Yeah.
up in Canada essentially said, man, I wish I could work with you. And like that was literally it. I was like, well, why couldn't she? I could just put together like a little plan. She could communicate with me weekly. And since then we've obviously, built it to something much larger in what the clients get and whatnot. But at that point, it was very simple, very generic as far as like do this at this time, boom, boom, boom. And she ended up losing like 30, 35 pounds in 16 weeks. And I was like, whoa, okay, I have something here. And then I just blasted MySpace. And back on MySpace days too, you got to remember like you didn't even use your name. You use like a nickname,
Yeah.
and my nickname was Hitch on MySpace. And when we met, she still thought, she was like, "Who's this Hitch guy?" She didn't even know my real name. And so, yeah, long story short, I ended up was like, okay, we're just gonna build this business and call it Hitch Fit. And so that's how kind of it all came about, was one lady saying, man, I wish I could work with you. And then I literally just created it.
Wow. Wow. Now you guys were living together in an attic, as you said, Diana. And how long was that planned for, right? You guys are, in it to win it, right? In a sense, you got the business desires going. You're, you know, saying, hey, this is what we're gonna do. I mean, what was the game plan like? Were you guys like, hey, we're going to be in here a year, 5 years, 10 years? I mean, was there, something that you guys kind of had a game plan on, how we're going to move forward with this?
Well, if you remember, like 2009 was like a recession. Like
Yeah.
so it was, and so that was another thing. People thought it was crazy. We were like launching this business in a recession, but it actually
Yeah.
thrived because we found in recession times, it's one of those times when people actually go back to the things that they can control, which
Yeah.
is their health and their fitness, like when there's so many things out of control. So we actually grew and like fairly quickly. We were in the attic, I think, for almost 2 years, maybe
Yeah,
a
been
year and
down
a half
two
to
years.
2 years.
Yeah.
And then we had saved up enough that we could actually go into like an apartment where and then I think maybe a year after that we were able to 3 years after the attic we were able to buy our first home.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you know what, I loved the attic years though, and I don't think we knew exactly when we were going to get out of the attic, but we actually had so much fun. We didn't have
Yeah.
much money, but it was to be creative and to have control over what we were building and to be able to just, we both had experience in the fitness industry working in gyms, and we'd seen these things as employees of gyms that we were like, I don't want to do that. As we build and grow and as we start a team, I don't want them to feel those things that we felt in corporate. And I also don't want the clients to experience what they experience in a corporate gym. So it was actually really fun just to be so creative and just, seeing people respond. And then when we were getting transformations, like seeing like 10, 20 of their friends were like, whoa, like where did you go? I want to go there. So we didn't have to stay in the attic for too long, but I actually enjoyed. I mean, we don't look back at the attic years and be like, oh, that was terrible. It was actually, we look back at it with so much fondness
Yeah.
because it was
Yeah.
just a place that we didn't have much, but it enabled us to just sit there and really focus on what we wanted to build. And we worked every day. I mean, we just, we had the online, but we also were able to open our first gym that was within walking distance because I didn't have a car.
Yeah.
But we were
Nice.
there
That
every single day,
made it work.
Yep.
we made it work.
Yep.
And once we got to a point where we were at full capacity, we were like, okay, now we have to figure out how we can start scaling this and bringing other trainers in, but teaching them our systems, and so that they're
Yeah.
bringing the same value and that they're representing the brand that we're building too. So and
Yeah.
we're very faith based too, so we kind of have our plan, but then we like kind of let God do what he wants to do
Yeah.
too. So there's been things we're like, we're
Yeah.
going to do this, and he's like, no, you're not going that way, you're going this way.
Yeah.
And it always ends up better that way anyways.
It always works out for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Now, were you married when you guys started the business?
We were not when we started the business. We got married in 2011. So essentially what happened is we needed to have everything on point, and that meant our finances and everything, going into the marriage. We just wanted to make sure that everything was foundationally where it needed to be. Our faith getting stronger, that was another thing that we
Yeah.
wanted to work on. And then so in 11 we ended up getting married. And a funny story about that, we get married in 2011 in like July. In August we end up competing at world level, and so our whole prep leading into our show was our wedding, and like we couldn't eat anything but like chicken breast and shakes and veggies, and
You look good at your wedding, though.
but yeah, she ended up getting second in the world. I got first in the world that year, so 2011
Beautiful.
was a great year.
Nice. Beautiful. Beautiful. So how important was that dynamic between you two to get the business going, to get things rolling? Like, I mean, did that play a big part of it? I mean, how do you think that worked out?
Well, so when I actually met Micah, we actually met in MySpace, and then we met in person in Las Vegas at the Olympia. So it's like true love at MySpace in Las Vegas and the Olympia, who knew? But
Yeah.
I knew before I had met him, we had a friendship. It wasn't even like, hey baby, it was just more mutual respect because I was doing some similar things in San Antonio. So we knew even when we met that we had
Yeah.
just similar passions as far as helping people and actually wanting to do the work to help
Yeah.
people transform not just their physical like on the outside, but just transform their mindsets and that side of things too. So we already knew before we even met that we had those things in common. And then when we met that weekend, we were, I mean, it was one of those things that like I knew he was the one. People always say like, did you know immediately? We both knew immediately. It's like we met, we were going to just take a picture. We ended up hanging out with each other the entire weekend, and then I actually moved to Kansas City 2 months after that because I was like, well, like this is it. I got to go. So we came into it just it was such a perfect alignment out the gate. It wasn't even a question for us of, well, I don't know
Yeah.
about doing that. It was like he was building Hitch Fit and it hadn't launched yet. And so it kind of was just a perfect coming together. So I was the female side of it, which was needed. So it was more complete.
Okay.
And so marriage was something we knew it wasn't the intention out the gate. It was literally just we had to make enough money to pay for a wedding,
Yeah.
which we did. But
Yeah,
You
there you
know,
go. No, that makes sense. I guess, the reason why I ask, right? You always see things or I read things online, how, you know, having the right partner can really bring the best out of you. And, there's might be some entrepreneurs out there that, family, friends, maybe even partners don't encourage them or help them in the ways that could build their business, or they maybe say, hey, maybe you need to have a backup plan, or you need to kind of do X, Y, and Z, where you know you see a couple like you guys who live in an attic together going at it, have very similar mindsets and have very similar goals, and you've been able to build this business and over 80 different countries, international, and have helped people, maybe most importantly, get their health and their lives in track. And I mean, that's a big deal, right? So, you guys have had maybe, and I'm sure there's been bumps, roadblocks, and all sorts of everything that you come into when you're going into anything that's, I guess, worth fighting for in a sense. But it's amazing to me how you guys have been able to build this business together. And I guess that, a lot of that support and that system that you guys have has been able to help that, I would have to think. And, I guess my point is some entrepreneurs out there don't have that. And some families out there might put a little maybe negative pressure on their entrepreneurs or the people in their life that are going after things like this. And, it just kind of makes me think like, wow, you guys, it's amazing, honestly.
well, I think what's extremely important for the entrepreneurs that are listening to this, and even their family members, maybe if they're not on, they're not in the business with them, is like, as an entrepreneur, what we wanted is we wanted to wake up every single day and do exactly what it is that we wanted to do. So this business was really
Yeah.
built off of passion and people first over money. And so when we had dips in money, it didn't affect us psychologically the same way as, people who put money first. And I
Yeah.
really encourage people, like, make what it is that you're doing something you love, and so that you can work on it every single day and it doesn't feel like a bunch of work. And then just coming home, if your spouse is not a part of that business, and just communicating with them, on everything that's going on, and really just try to get them on the same page. I mean, you know that marriage is a covenant between you and your wife or your husband and God, and like communication is so crucial.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that we don't bicker from time to time. You're running a business and
Sure.
trying to run a relationship, and so when you have those two things, sometimes that can butt heads, especially we're both very type A. um but we come together and we make it work, and we built something that's really beautiful, that's been able to help a lot of people. So for the entrepreneurs out there, like, go for your dreams, like, make it happen, but also make sure that you're not spending so much time in that business that you're not spending time with your spouse. Like, there needs
Yeah.
to be a balance there, because they need your love and support too.
Right.
yeah, I would add to that, just because that is probably one of the most challenging things when you're an entrepreneur at heart. Is someone that doesn't have that entrepreneurial spirit, it is very hard for them to understand, like, why you got to do this. Why can't you just go get a job like everybody else
Right.
has? Why, I had people early on in my life that were like, oh, no, no, you shouldn't go and try those things. You should get a job and have security and make sure you have a steady paycheck and make sure you have
Yeah.
benefits. To me, that felt like a cage. Like, that felt like
Right.
I was like, I can't do that. Like, you don't understand. Like, I will, like, my life will be miserable if I do that.
Right.
Even though I know there is great risk to this, I can't live any other way. It's like, that is the spirit, like, God put that in me, and I can't
Yeah.
stifle that. So when they don't have the support at home, I mean, it is a blessing that we have, and we're both time people too. So some married couples, we are together all the time.
Yeah.
And a lot of couples, they couldn't do that. Luckily, we're time people, so we actually enjoy that, and we crave
Yeah.
that. But I would tell the people that don't have their spouse either on board with them, or if you're trying to work as a couple running a business, just learn each other's love language first. And if your spouse needs some space, like, make sure you're open to just giving them the space and the time that they need
Yeah.
for them as an individual, but also make sure that you make the space for couples time, that is,
Mhm.
that where you're a couple, that isn't about business, whether that's date nights or whatever that may be. And
Right.
if you're an entrepreneur with someone who's not, I would just encourage you to get mentors around you, because every entrepreneur has the same challenges. It doesn't matter what the business is, the challenges are the same. There's mentorship groups if you're a female entrepreneur, or like there's groups for women, there's groups for men, there's groups of combinations. There's so many mentoring groups that we've found value in, both groups that we're in together and then groups that we're in separately, and so that we can help and grow and learn from them. But there's people out there, so if you're feeling that just nobody understands me, like, get in one of those communities and surround yourself with like-minded people so that they can help
Yeah.
you grow
Mhm.
and navigate the challenges in the relationship too.
Yeah.
Right. Now that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you hear things like, look at the people around you and that's kind of who you'll be kind of deal, right? And mentorship is a big thing, and that's part of this Shoulders of Giants show, is to help entrepreneurs maybe find new mentors, find online mentors. Maybe when you guys started the business, you had some mentors that you looked up. I know you mentioned a few different people that in the bodybuilding or in that kind of industry that you looked up to.
Mhm.
And I think that's, a big part of it is, how are we learning? Where are we getting our mentorship from? And, how are we communicating? And are we open to learning, from that mentorship? Were there any big people in your life in the beginning of business that were helping you point you in the right direction, or help you kind of get things in the right way, and really help you get things off started?
Um, so the only person right at the very beginning, one of my really close friends, a guy named Adam, he kind of put the fire under me to actually say, like, dude, you need to do your own thing. Like, you have all the tangibles to do it. This is before I
Yeah.
met Diana, and like, you need to start this thing. And so that was the initial fire. And a lot of the things that I accomplished in my life was because someone was like, either you can't go do it or you should go do it. And those two, because
Right.
I'm stubborn, but I'm extremely disciplined and driven. And so I utilize
Right.
those things to accomplish a lot in life. And so he came with more of the approach, like, you should go do this, like, you need to go do this. And then I had a client. This is a cool story. I had a client that we didn't have enough money to open the gyms. And I had kind of budgeted to like figure out exactly how much money I needed for startup or whatnot. And I'm kind of talking to him one day, and I knew we were going to move out of the gym that we were at, so we were kind of a little bit unstable on like what our next direction was, but we knew we wanted to open a gym. And I said, I need $12,500. And he goes, "What's your PayPal?" And
Mhm.
I gave my PayPal. He sent me over $12,500. So we transformed him, his girlfriend, his mom. I mean, like, and that's how, that was the seed money to end up opening our first gym. And so, and he was an entrepreneur type. He saw what we were as far as discipline, dedication, where our passion was, and he believed in us. And then quite a few years later, we ended up being a part of a mentoring program that was absolutely amazing here in Kansas City.
3 years.
Was
We were
yeah,
only
3 years,
old.
3 years.
Yeah.
And I mean, my mentor was just fantastic. He came into the business. He was also an online client. We'd meet multiple times a week. Mentorship is gigantic, and we try to give back now, and help those people that we see that same sort of flame in.
And that group that he's
Yeah.
talking about, it's called HEMP, the Hillsburg Entrepreneurial Mentoring Program. And when
Okay.
they let us in, we actually didn't even fully meet all of their qualifications. But when we met with them and told them what we were doing, they saw so much passion in us that they actually were like, you know what, we're gonna let them in just because we feel like
Right.
they can grow. So even if you as a young entrepreneur, even if you feel like, oh, maybe I'm not qualified for something yet, it doesn't hurt to just ask. It doesn't hurt to just apply. And when you show you're super passionate, you never know when a door or a relationship is gonna open because someone sees that desire in
Yeah.
you, even if you don't necessarily meet every qualification that they're looking for.
Right. You got to be a little vulnerable sometimes, and you got to ask for help, right?
Yep.
Sometimes if you don't ask, you'll never get it. And, we're all humans. We're all going on our own little journey, and we've all kind of been here, entrepreneurs just as yourselves, people that see you now. It's probably that kind of get rich quick kind of feeling, right? You got the, over multiple different countries and all these different things. And people are like, man, I wish I could be that. But they don't see the hard work. They don't see the years in the attic. They don't see, the fights that maybe spilled into the home and having to work on the relationship a little better to be able to get it dialed in to where you need to be working efficiently. They don't see all of that stuff. And, I think that maybe that's what stops a lot of people, right? Maybe not having a support system. Maybe they hit some bumps in the road and, they don't know how to, overcome that. I was in the Army, so we always used to say adapt and overcome. And that's kind of how I approach it whenever I come to, a roadblock. What have you guys done in the past when you come to those sticking points, when you come to those walls, when you come to those hard points in business, or even, in a relationship, or how you've got to where you go? What is something that you hold on to when you come to those points so that you can move forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I would tell others, you got to get good at how you were. I think early on in the business, difficult, I think, to ultimately learn how to manage people and all these. So a lot of that was new to us, and so things became very, very different. We got good at knowing that every single day we woke up, there was going to be something that came up that was totally uncontrollable. I mean, we had a car run through our gym one time. We had, just the crazy.
I mean, is that where a lot of the passion comes in, right? Because if you don't have the passion for business, something like that happens, you might kind of just throw it to the wayside.
It's one of those things where if we're willing away, or if there's doors that we think are good doors, also pray that if doors are not meant for us, they're disappointments. Just knowing that, if it's a fully surrendered thing, that pruning things away that we thought were good actually leaves the opportunity for growth in something else.
Yep.
And then there's things that are toxic that maybe we didn't know that they were toxic, or there's a path that maybe we would have gone down that would have led us to disaster. And so we always think of those things as closed doors, as that can be protection against things that we don't even see. So coming from it from that perspective just has allowed a lot more peace and a lot more better responses. It doesn't mean that in the moment we don't get, hyped up and but then it's once we settle and really process it, it's okay, just wherever we're supposed to go, that's where we want to go.
I think the bigger things that you deal with too, the small things don't seem like a big deal, right? Like when you overcome really massive storms, you think on terms of what you've gone through in the past. So then you're just, you just handle it differently. You're like, oh man, I mean, this is a big deal, but it's not as big a deal as what we went through 2 years ago. We'll be able to get through this fine. And then us making sure we're on the same page emotionally and communicating properly through it. And then just, you're just you're tackling the problem. and figuring out the solution. And, every business owner, every entrepreneur is going to have this. If there's people
Yeah.
involved, you're going to have to, figure out people and the psychology of people. And then you're going to also have to, you have supply issues. Sometimes you have cost, you're trying to figure out your ROIs. I mean, there's stuff that
Right.
is constantly changing. And so you got to kind of evolve as it evolves.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a great point, kind of being willing to change, being, kind of being a little limber, being not so stuck in your ways sometimes. And as you've said, sometimes that opens a door that maybe we didn't think about, that went to a better avenue, or, that actually helped the business more. Right. So just having that vulnerability, kind of a hard word to say, I guess, but, just having that, willingness to listen, willingness to change, and being able to adapt and kind of go wherever you need to go. So I know you guys have a meeting here coming up very shortly. What's some of the things that you would tell those entrepreneurs, people that are starting out there, people that are stuck maybe midway or stuck, at that goal that they can't reach? What are some of those things that you would tell them to keep pushing them forward, or that you think is important for them to know?
I think a couple things, then I'll let Diana finish with this. If there's things in your business that you're just not good at or you don't have passion doing, really try to outsource it and find people. There's certain things within our business, for instance, like I love the social media marketing side of things, and we do a majority of that on all of our posts and the creation of all of that. But there's stuff like coding of the website, and there's stuff, when it
Yeah.
comes to graphic design and whatnot, that we got to outsource, checking backlinks on a regular basis, kind of the tedious
Right.
stuff. A lot of the
Sure.
times we're kind of outsourcing that sort of jobs. Phone calls. Phone calls is another one. We hired one of our very close friends. He has a really cool, like movie voice, like, and he does all of our phone calls and talks to all of potential clients and whatnot. Just because our schedules, we also know our passion for it. We'll get on a phone call for 2 hours, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, like, our schedules don't allow that. And so
Sure.
he's been a great, kind of middleman for the initial communication with new potential clients or business opportunities.
Yeah,
Nice.
I would just add to that. You have to be persistent. There's absolutely going to be obstacles that come in the way, and it's if you can just change how you look at if you can change how you look at things that you would define as failure. Like, it's I never think of things as failure. It's just always a redirection, or it's okay, that didn't work. Okay, what does work? Every time something doesn't work just means, okay, you now can cross that off as that didn't work, instead of, oh, I'm such a failure. It's Sure, it's fine to have failures. It doesn't mean that you're the failure. So you just have
Right.
to figure out a different path or a different strategy. The other thing I would say is also make sure your priorities are in alignment. We see a lot of entrepreneurs that neglect their health completely. And it's like you're pouring everything into this business and then you lose your physical health. And I'll tell you that it actually, you're going to be far more productive, far more creative, far more able to handle the growth of a business, all of those things, if you actually
Yeah.
take care of your body and your health, your
Yep.
mental health,
Yep.
and your physical health first. So we see that flipped. Oh, I got business, business, business. And then you have a stroke and then your business is gone, or you're so
Yeah.
mentally tired and foggy, like you can't perform at your optimal. You don't have as many ideas. So make sure you have your priorities in alignment. As an entrepreneur, you can't afford not to take care of your physical health and your mental and emotional
Yeah.
health first if you actually want to have a long-term successful business. So there you go.
There you go.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I kind of have these pillars that I live by: health, wealth, love, and happiness, right?
Mhm.
And, mental and physical is three of the four pillars there. And, I think that's a big deal. You meet a lot of people, and as you said earlier, not having passion for their business. So they'll, make millions of dollars, but hate the life that they're living, right? So the mental's not there, but the wealth is there. But, is that really the best thing for us? I don't know. Everybody has their own viewpoints. For me, I think, like what you guys have said, having passion carries you through, being able to take you through those hardships, and, just having, very defined focus on where you want to go, and being able to change and, be a little limber on how you get there. Right. And, because you guys have that passion, because you guys have had that vision for quite some time now, I'm going to guess that you're going to be growing the business for, the foreseeable future. So, it's definitely exciting to see people like you out there succeed. And I'm sure, a lot of entrepreneurs are going to get a lot out of this, video, because you guys have left us with a lot of great information. And, the dynamic that you guys have, and to be able to create this business, just seeing you guys from online and just talking to you in this quick 30 minutes is amazing. And I hope a lot of people out there, especially some of the couples out there that might be trying to run some businesses, can learn from this and can grow from it and things like that. So, hey, I appreciate your time here at Shoulders of Giants. How do people get a hold of you? How do people, get training from, how can Mike and Diana, affect people out there that are watching the show?
You guys can follow us on Instagram. It's Mr. Hitch Fit, and then hers is
Mrs. Hitch Fit or Diana Shalou. And then we also, the websites for Hitch Fit, for the online side of things, it's hitchfit.com. And then we actually have a new retreat business that's just a couple years old, where we kind of do what we do at Hitch Fit, but we do it in group settings in Mexico and really cool locations. And that's rockbodyretreat.com. So there's the online, we have one-on-one gyms in Kansas City. And then we actually have really cool retreats that people can come on with us as well.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, hey, I appreciate your time. I hope you have the great rest of your week and a great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you, Chris.